and good evening to our distinguished guests. Like she has just mentioned, we are behind schedule, and this last session we're going to find a way of keeping it a little bit short for the purposes of curfew. Just in front of you, Katumba Alex, a medical laboratory science officer, currently working with Kampala Hospital as the manager, and I'm a coordinator of Synthetic Biology Africa. In our session, we are going to just talk about financing and investment. We shall have two panelists on that, and of course they are ready. I'll introduce the overview after the cup of coffee. In interest of time, we are going to start. We have people online, and they are waiting, and they want to be doing other things. They would not know what we are doing, people who have attended in person. So I'll just give an overview of investment and financing for this discussion. So one of the building blocks of synthetic biology in Africa is to invest, is investment and financing. Without adequate investment and financing, nothing much can be realized, and then we cannot write anything home when we don't have money. One person said that ATP has ATPs to the cells, so is money to this noble cause of science. So more so on the overview, we are also going to look at the existence and the perspectives of funders. What do funders think about when it comes to investing in the science world? More so on the overview, we will also have a view from the investor's perspective on how biosecurity and biosafety can be a global cause in terms of funding, and we shall also have some questions, of course, at the end of the day. How best, one of the questions that is in the overview is what opportunities do we have there? Because I wanted people to have this already, such that when we are going through this, it is quick. We may not come back to this, but maybe reminders. We want to see the opportunities that the world of science has out there in terms of financing and investment. So I will start with one of our panelists, or one of our discussants today. That is Ryan Morhard is with us today, and he will be the first presenter. Ryan Morhard is the Director for Policy and Partnership at Ginkgo Bioworks. Ginkgo Bioworks is a building platform to establish customers, program cells as early as we can program computers. I think you've seen some of the sponsors, and I believe it's not a new. Ginkgo Bioworks has traversed so many countries on this cause. More of Ryan pursues the opportunity to apply for the company's platform to advocate key global agendas such as the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, then climate change, improving global health security. Before joining Ginkgo Bioworks, Ryan led the World Economic Forum, works in the global health security and biological risks. Prior to that, Ryan served as the branch chief for the International Partnership in the US Department of Health and Human Services. In this role, Ryan led engagement in the several multilateral and regional bilateral partnerships to support the domestic and international responses to Ebola When I talk about Ebola, I believe Africans, you can bear me witness, and Zika viruses, and of course other health emergencies, as well as strengthening collective preparedness. Before that, Ryan was a legal analyst and associate at the Center of Health Security. Ryan is a lawyer by profession, and he has also done neuroscience at the University of Pittsburgh. He is a term member of the Council in the Foreign Relations and a center affiliated to the Center of Global Health Science and Security at the Georgetown University. So members, join me to welcome Ryan. Ryan is going to give us this presentation of HEAD. We may not have slides. He has everything from his head. So you're most welcome, Ryan.
Yeah, thank you, Alex, for the kind introduction, and thank you for everyone for. And this is the second time I've taken the podium today, so I'm aware of that. And I will be brief, partially because it is just in my head, but also because I think what's been clear today is just how, mostly I've learned a lot today. I don't know if there's very much I can add, especially at the very end of the day. But I did just want to say one thing about global agendas. And again, I will be brief, but if we think about a couple of the presentations today, we've tied synthetic biology and the urgency of the work that we're all doing to several different global agendas. We've talked about the UN SDGs, we've talked about biodiversity, we've talked about circular economy and climate change and environment, and there's, of course, pandemics. These agendas, I think, are important for us to tie our work to, because this is the context that policymakers are working in. But I think I'm also mindful of how just incredibly frustrating it is to engage in those conversations with those bodies and the governing bodies and the working groups, and it's very slow. I think we've already heard a couple of folks here say, well, it feels like they're not listening. And I just wanted to share maybe one story and then maybe make a kind of a request that we can all work together on. But in terms of a story, I just, you heard my bio there. I think Alex was very generous, but I spent the last 10 years before the pandemic talking about pandemics, before the pandemic. And it was just kind of like a time where you go around and you sit at tables and you try to tell people, actually a pandemic could happen, and okay, and no one really listens and no one does anything, and maybe others in the room can relate to that. And I feel like we're kind of at a similar moment with synthetic biology right now. That we're kind of sitting at tables and saying, actually we're pretty close to some solutions to that problem, or actually if we work in this way or that way, we can actually bring something to bear to actually solve that problem. And it's not always getting traction, and I think it's important that we stay in those conversations and that we keep our fingers at the pulse in those agendas, that we're at those tables, because it all kind of changes fast, I think. This is only my one lesson, just one person's hindsight 2020, but all of a sudden, after begging people to talk about pandemics, it very quickly, and I know it's because of the virus, but very quickly everybody became a pandemics expert. And they knew as much as I ever knew, and they did. They knew as much as I knew from 10 years of just kind of like, after 2 weeks, we all knew that much. And the work that we're all doing, if it's as transformational as we believe it will be, and the tools develop the way we believe they will develop, you can't stem that demand. That wave is coming of people who will want to work with synthetic biology, who will want to use it to solve really hard problems that they care about. They may not care about biotechnology, but they care about climate change or energy or alternative proteins or whatever it is. And they're going to come to us to find out, well, how are we going to solve that problem with synthetic biology? And I think we'll look, you know, at SynBio Africa 4 years from now, we may need an arena for everybody who cares about it. And that's the kind of change I think that's coming when we think about global agendas. You know, the global agendas are tedious, but there's a reason they're global agendas. They've captured the imagination and the motivation of the whole world. And if we don't bring synthetic biology into those conversations, we may miss, but also they may end up adopting biotechnology when it's ready on terms that maybe we don't think are quite right. You know, one thing that's very evident today, just sitting today and enjoying the conversation, is the people in this room have thought more deeply about this stuff than anyone else in the world. And so when the tools are there and the demand is there, people will pick up the tools and they'll use them. And they wouldn't have maybe thought about them in the way that this group has. And so if we're not at those tables to sort of share some wisdom and to learn about the needs, then I think we kind of risk, we have some risk. And so I just didn't want to keep you much longer. I have no more results, but I just was thinking today about the global agendas, how deeply this group is thinking about them and how important it is that we bring the expertise in this room to those global conversations, because the wave of interest is coming, and when the tools are there and the demand is there, I think we will see synthetic biology transform the world and the way we live. So, thank you.